Okay, so all the tough crowds up front here. This is intimidating. Yeah. So I've been a mountain host at Deer Valley for 2 decades, and we get a lot of the same questions over and over and over. Is bandana the only way to empire? Yes. Why is Birdseye so icy? It isn't. Ski back east, if you don't believe me. What formula does Deer Valley use to cap ticket sales? I don't know, and I'd rather explain the ontological theory of the existence of God. But there's one question we do get a lot, which I kind of like, and that's, who was Lady Morgan? You get it when you're riding up the Lady Morgan chair or up the Empire chair, and we're gonna try and tackle that tonight. This is an exercise in uncertainty because we have hypotheses that we can't prove or disprove. What's the saying? Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, or something like that. So we're sort of dealing with that situation. And over the years, trying to answer who was Lady Morgan got me going down this rabbit hole. And I learned about Philip Morgan, who was behind it all. So we're gonna spend some time talking about Philip and some of the more famous mine developers like John Daly and Simon Bamberger and people like that. And that's where I'm going to rely on the people in the audience. I drew a lot from Brian Buck's talks, from Sandy Brumley's research. Hope and Sandy Melville did a great timeline on John Daly, which I rely on. So, and there are other smart people in the room who can correct me and extend what we talk about tonight. And before we go into the objectives of the talk, this is a museum archive photo on the left. And this is Lady Morgan Bowl up here. This is the flat. If you go too far and you have to hike out, you're going over Lady Morgan Lake, which is really more of a marsh. There were evidence of fairly substantial mining in the area. You can go back into these trees and see that shaft. We got room up front and in the middle here. Come on in.
Up here.
And no questions from you.
Yeah. Come on in. Come on in. We got room. We got a couple more here. One on the end. We got one there, one there. Hi. And I apologize. I'm going to have to crowd you guys because if I get any closer to that, it's going to be a bad rock concert. So, and this photo was taken probably about 8 or 10 years ago, after a fairly big winter, and you can see the lake was pretty good sized. And I'm just amazed over and over at any photos you see from the museum archives at how the aspen and conifers have grown back since the clear cutting of the mining days. So, all right, on to the objectives.
So
What happened? Oh,
I think I'm maybe I like to.
did I unplug it? Gus? There we go. Okay, we're good. Okay, so come on. So the talk has 3 objectives. The first is let's talk about Philip Morgan and his mining career. And in the process of doing that, and folded within, is going to be a discussion of what I call the square dance effect, which is how these mine developers like Morgan, like Daly, like R.C. Chambers, one moment they're in business with you, the next moment they're suing you. Okay? That never happens today. And then we're going to have dessert last, and that's who is Lady Morgan? I have 4 hypotheses. I'd love to hear if there are others. And we'll discuss it and have a show of hands at the end of the discussion to see what's the most plausible. And we'll include, Sandra will include the Irish washerwoman in that. Okay, so remind me. So Philip's early days. You'll notice right off, I don't have a photo of him. The guy standing in front of the lake, was that Philip Morgan? Maybe. We don't know. He was very elusive prey in my research. I could find nothing in the museum archives, in the Marriott archives, anything. But we do know from familysearch.org, he was born in the south part of Wales, from a fairly big family, 3 sisters, 4 brothers, and he moved to Utah in 1864. His youngest brother Henry followed him. So we'll talk a little bit about Henry too. Now, did this part of Wales was known for coal mining, and did Philip and Henry and the other brothers work in the coal mines? We don't know. I'll have to go to Wales. So over a period of time, starting in 1878, Morgan prospected or acquired a total of 15 claims in the Lady Morgan Bowl area. And these included the Grizzly, which we're going to talk about, the Mono, which we're going to talk about, and also a bunch of claims that were named after females. He had a number of partners, not all the same partners on all the deals, but he had a number of people he worked with, including John Gottlieb Scharr, who we'll talk about, John Groesbeck, who was for a time the sheriff, and Simon Bamberger. And who knows who Simon Bamberger, what is notable about him? Larry or Mrs. Larry?
Bamberger Railroad and Governor of Utah.
Bamberger Railroad and Governor of Utah, correct. Okay. Now you can see the Mono, the Lizarina, the Marietta. Lady Morgan is right about in here. This circle is the anchor shaft or the Daly Judge. And that's the drain tunnel that you see at the top of Daly Avenue. And this one is the Daly West. So the Morgan claims were right between 2 very productive areas. Any questions so far? How are we doing? Okay. Here's another way to look at it. Okay. So montage. Empire chair, this red line, Empire chair. The marshy area, the lake, and the lake. And then the steep part of Lady Morgan Bowl. Excuse me. So does that get everybody oriented? How many have skied Lady Morgan Bowl? Oh, strong work. And so it is a great off-piste trail on a powder day. Really fun. And the flat part of the bowl, well, we're going to talk about that a little later. But anyway, the Lady Morgan Bowl is a terrific run. Now, I get nervous whenever I go to the Summit County Assessor's Office. I don't want to bring attention to to us in our townhouse in Kimball Junction, and does it get reassessed and everything. But it is fun to go there and look at the ginormous folios of mining claims. And it's wonderful technology. It's a 3x5 card system. And you go, oh, Lady Morgan. Okay, that's in volume 8 and page 24. Yeah. And so this is the Lady Morgan claim filed in August of 1878. And you'll see that Philip is in the locator's box. And I think that's 1,050 feet, I think. And then the very first line is Gottlieb's share with, I think, 450. Maybe 750, but that doesn't make sense because they allocated mining claims not by percentage, but by feet. And most were 16, somebody help me out here, 1,600 feet by 600. Couple of football fields. But feet was how the county assessor's office recorded ownership when there were multiple partners on a claim.
So how deep?
How deep? As deep as you want to go. It's the surface area that we're talking about. Okay, so as I mentioned, the lake at the bottom is a marshy area, but when you hike there, you can see evidence of some earthen dikes that were added. Those were to raise the level of the lake, presumably for culinary water for the boarding houses and the milling operations, and perhaps even some of the reservoirs that they had farther down in Empire Canyon. Right about here, here's Mountain Host Tip. You're skiing down, enjoying the powder, and you blow right by the bamboo with the pie plates with the go right. That's okay. Yes, sir. What happened? You walk out. Yeah, those last 3 or 4 turns better be good because you're going to pay for them. But that bamboo and right-hand arrows, the ski patrol calls that the Easy Lady Traverse. So don't miss it. All right. So now, so Morgan, over the process of from about 78 to 84, has assembled these 15 claims, which we're from now on just going to call the Morgan claims or the Morgan group. And in 1884, for whatever reason, Morgan and his partners make a deal with George Mears from Birmingham, a follower of the LDS Church. And Mears signs a contract, takes a little money, and starts working on these claims. Got a picture of George. I don't know why we don't have a picture of Philip, but so it goes. Now, Mears is working pretty hard on this, on the Morgan claims. A year later, Simon Bamberger pulls together some money people and the Morgan brothers, and they form a new corporation. And now, Bamberger and Philip had worked together on the Mono claim in 1884. So Bamberger was listed on one of the mine claim registers. So they knew each other and were business partners. Anyway, they form a new company. This is one of Bamberger's first leaps into Park City investment. The new corporation asserts in court that Mears hasn't done a darn thing and he should vacate and they're going to take over. Sweeter deal for the Morgans is what I can presume. Now, Bamberger, as Larry mentioned, years later became our first Democratic and first Jewish and only Jewish governor of Utah. So he was a big wheel. But, you know, I gotta speculate that it's kind of hard for Morgan and Bamberger to ignore the presence of the Grizzly Tunnel, okay? And when they go into court and say, nothing's been done on the claims, oh, okay, that's a stretch. So is it possible that Bamberger and Morgan were, you know, is it possible in Park City that someone would use a lawsuit to pressure someone? I mean, were there vicious Bernese mountain dogs living inside? I don't know. The research was inconclusive, but Morgan responds, countersues, says, hey, I've spent some money on this, $6,000 times that by 25 to get roughly today's dollars. He has no intention to vacate his work or vacate the claims, which prompts Morgan to take other action. And he hires some guys to go and strong arm their way into the Morgan Tunnel. Now, where's the Morgan Tunnel? It might be here. This is about where the montage is. Pearl Run is about here. And I think this is where, when you hike the Mid-Mountain Trail and you cross Pearl and you go into the aspen trees, and on your left in about 50 yards is a little cliff, and on your right is a subsidence and a waste rock pile. I think it's this waste rock pile. And now, was this the Grizzly Tunnel? Not sure. Sandy Brumley and I hiked all over this, and it was inconclusive. I'm going to have to follow up with Chuck English. He might remember, you know, bulldozing something closed. Tunnel. It's always called the Grizzly Tunnel. So, yeah, and it doesn't show up on Collier's or Gorlinsky. So it must have been fairly small, but it was big enough that some guys with 6-shooters and Winchesters decided to try and take it over. They did. Mears got a hold of the law, who arrested the raiders. 4 of those guys were fined by the court $25 each. So that's a couple of weeks' pay. And one of those 4, A.J. Moore, had been involved a few years earlier in the lynching of Blackjack Murphy. So these were tough customers that Morgan knows the highfalutin people like Bamberger and the guys you hire in the bar. So again, this is a museum photo, and you can see the top of Lady Morgan right there. That's the top of Empire. Okay, and the lake would have been just over this rise, the tree where the vegetation is. So everyone in town thought it makes sense. The Morgan claims have to be pretty rich. They're right next to the Anchor. They're right next to the Daly West. This has got to be the next big thing. John Daly got interested. Now, John came to town a few years before that. He originally invested in Bonanza Flat, in the Jones Bonanza. Anyone know the story of the Jones Bonanza? One of the Jones brothers was hauling timber out to sell to the mines, and his log that his horse was dragging got stuck in a boulder, and he went and pried it loose, and prying it loose, he broke some rock. And he looked at the rock and said, "Oh, I'm changing my career." So, Daly came in and took over that operation. It didn't produce, and then Daly, and help me out, Hope and Sandy, but Daly then went working for the Ontario. And okay, Sandra got a nod of agreement. And Daly had the theory that the ore went up the canyon. And so he quietly started to assemble mining claims up there, and that became the Daly #1, which was roughly near the bottom of the north side lift. The Daly #2, which is roughly where Custer and Walker merge on Deer Valley's trails, and then the Daly West. So in all the excitement with Mears and Morgan countersuing, Daly quietly hires some guys to survey the Morgan claims. That didn't go over well. The three-cornered lawsuit. So both Mears, Party A, and Morgan et al., Party B, sue Daly, Party C, to cease and desist. And I love this quote. I won't read it. You guys can read it. I love the quote from the Salt Lake Democrat, kaleidoscopic and in fact, this entire lecture is a very hazardous and doubtful proceeding, so, bear with me. Here's the Daly West, big operation. Here's the Morgan operation, okay? This probably is all you need to know why Morgan is not as famous as Daly, so. And that concludes my, no. So the third district court took its sweet time a couple of years later. We're now approaching 1890, and they essentially rule in favor of Mears, which makes sense. Hey, I did the work. You can go see it. And I love the newspapers of the time, especially the Park Record. They are such cheerleaders. And again, you can read the quote, but a bright future. Oh, this is fabulous. Happy days are here again. So, and now we're coming to our first do-si-do, the first part of the square dance that I mentioned. 1890, Chambers, who knew Daly from the Ontario, John Daly, Morgan, who just finished suing Daly, Mears, who just finished suing Daly and suing Morgan, they all get together and create the Mears Silver Mining Company. Okay, there'll be a quiz on this, okay? This is where my head starts to spin. And I couldn't find any evidence that it was a court order that prompted this new square dance of partners. Okay, it's probably just these guys figuring they can make some money. This is not a museum archive photo. This is just eye candy, but this is from the Salt Lake Herald. It's their turn to cheerlead. This is going to be a second Ontario. Whew. Now, shockingly, this partnership lasts about 2 years. There's a report in the paper about nothing happening at the Morgan claims due to an unspecified dispute among the directors. And at the time in the papers, Mears was doing a little politicking, and he said, no, I've spent a ton of money. This would be roughly, approaching $15-16 million in today's dollars, the total bill, and then substantial amount. This again proves that, we talk about, there were 24 millionaires who came out of the Park City district. No, it was just a bunch of rich lawyers. So, okay, that's the only people who made money, really. And throughout this, you're just seeing ups and downs in the production of ore coming out of the Morgan claims. It's just not quite punching over the finish line. On a Deer Valley history hike last August, we were going to go look at the shaft, the remnants of that shaft that you saw earlier in the historic photo, in that tree line, and the bull moose right here dissuaded us from going any farther. So this is great moose habitat. I hope we get more snow, and so that there'll be plenty of water for them next spring and summer. So we've had our first do-si-do suing, partnership, dissolution. Then the entire dance hall gets trashed by the Panic of 93. This is, I want to research this more on the impact of this episode in US history on Park City history. This was considered the biggest disruption to the US economy until the Great Depression. In 1890, the Sherman Silver Act pegged 16 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold, no matter what the metal prices on the market did. And as it happened over the next couple of years, gold went up, silver went down because of oversupply. And that scared all the British, European investors and probably Eastern finance people out of the market. It just was an artificially unworkable ratio, and it gave everybody the skitters. And boom, overnight, stocks dropped, wheat dropped, railroads were never a bastion of fiscal responsibility, but they were in trouble. In fact, during this year, 1/4 of all the railroad lines in the United States were under receivership. So it was a tough time. Banks left and right went out of business. And what does this do to business people? They're caught in the whipsaw. And George Mears is one of them. And he takes his own life. Now, there are a couple of contributing factors besides being unable to secure money from his lenders and meet his obligations. He was named in 2 lawsuits. One was a minor partner in the Mears Silver Company was disputing the share, and Mears was named as in that lawsuit. The second one was Mears had been named Gottlieb Scher's executor, and he was giving Mrs. Scher some money over the years, but she ultimately thought, I'm not getting a square deal. The Morgan group of claims is worth more than what Mears is paying me. So she sues him right before the Panic to get him removed as an executor. And then boom, the Panic leaves him unable to meet his obligations, and he shoots himself in his barn with a revolver. The irony is he was considered one of the crack shots in Utah. He was almost a professional marksman. Didn't miss. Now, at the same time, Philip Morgan has his own personal challenges. At the age of 54, he finds a younger woman in Park City. Again, that never happens. I have to do one aside, a mountain host story. It's a hot day. I'm up at the top of Bald Mountain, and a rather fetching young woman skis up. She has her gloves off and has this enormous rock. And I go, oh, so there, and I'm thinking wife number 3. And she goes, I go, oh, so there is ice at Deer Valley. And she goes, oh, there's a lot of this. But in any event, Dell, 2 years later, says, you know, Morgan's worth about $500,000, our dollars, and he's not providing me with upkeep. And so the necessaries of life. So that was one allegation that she made. This is the wedding license from Evanston. And she also, you know, alleged abuse. Philip Morgan accused her of having lewd relations with a man named Redheaded Murphy, 2 other gentlemen that are unnamed, and with his brother Henry. You know, and he was also violent, and I just feel bad for the pet bird. Yes. Anyway, her suit for divorce is successful. Little side note, you know, in a so far low snow winter, but we can always hope. Back in 96, they got enough snow that a June thaw came and pumped so much water down into the lake, it busted the earthen dam and flooded a couple of buildings and wrecked the road and potentially imperiled some of the reservoirs that were further down. I have nothing else about this, but I just thought that was fascinating. So, another round of square dancing. Mears is deceased, so they reorganize and name it the Morgan Silver Mining Company, and but almost immediately there are some layoffs. So they're probably not in the best financial shape. Daly quietly buys another portion of the company a year or so later, and then but there's an assessment. So they go after the shareholders and say, not only are we not going to pay you a dividend, we're going to actually ask you to pony up a little money to help us continue operating. I think this was the precursor of the timeshare industry in Park City. So Daly is on the list of delinquent shareholders, but ultimately, with a go-between, he sweeps in and for $100,000 buys the whole kit and caboodle, all 15 Morgan claims. Okay, so Morgan is on Easy Street. He and his brother are set, right? And now Daly controls Daly West, the 1 and 2, and now the Morgan claim. So he's starting to assemble a lot of acreage in Empire Canyon. Now, then we have kind of the last do-si-do. As I mentioned, the Morgan claims didn't match expectations. There were assertions they were going to go to the 1,200-foot level. They maybe made it to the 900-foot. You know, moderate, you know, decent size, but not like the big mines in our district. Morgan and Bamberger's involved with the Ontario. They start assembling even more. They buy the Little Bell and the Quincy, and end up with about 1,200 acres in the Empire area. But shockingly, disputes arise. Right? And gradually, the Bambergers elbow John Daly out. So even the masterful John Daly can be shoved to the side of the dance hall from time to time. We don't feel bad for him because a year or two later, he and John Judge formed the Daly Judge, so they did okay. All right. But again, it must have made for very interesting cocktail parties. You know, like we've hi, we're friends this week, and no, I'm sorry, I'm taking you to court next week. So enjoy the drink. So. So a little side story on Henry. So he's got his money from the Daly Morgan purchase, and he invests in property downtown. This is 3rd South. That's Maine. So here's Henry, and his tax bill is about $408. But right next to him is John Daly. Here's Mary Judge. Here's Samuel Newhouse. Here's Mary again. You know, so he's in good company, right? Now, he also owns some property over here, a block or two. And in 1906, Henry and his wife are arrested when they threaten their neighbors with a gun over a fence. You know.
Amen.
And they didn't even have nextdoor.com back then to facilitate all that. And then in 1908, it's almost like they have a compulsion, like they have to go after each other. Henry sues John Daly for some strip of land somewhere in this block. You know, it's like a reflex for them. And this is interesting. Gentile, no tax. This came from an anti-Mormon paper, and the article wasn't really about Henry. It was about how the LDS Church and members of the LDS Church were complaining over the rise in tax rates. And this article said, the Gentiles are paying most of the tax rates in downtown. What are you whining about? So anyway, interesting.
Thing about the woman.
What's the thing about the woman? That's Henry's wife. She brandished the gun over the fence. Okay. So, whoop. Okay, I didn't lose it. All right. Now, after the sale, you know, to Daly, Philip really fades from view. He shows up in the Blue Ledge district. You know, he has a couple of claims under what's now the expanded terrain in Deer Valley. He's in some legal wranglings with what was, as far as I can understand, a precursor to Sitla, the school trust, and with some guy who busted into his mining cabin and stole a rifle. But that's it. That's all I can find from 1900 to 1915. And the last I hear of him, he dies in 1915 in the Marmalade district. This is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,200 square foot for $580,000 on Zillow. Seems like a pretty good deal. It's in good shape. So anyway, it was a modest home, but it was Henry's home, the guy that he accused of lewd behavior. So what was going on? It's interesting when Mears dies, there are some laudatory obituaries, and he's praised for just being a good business person and miner and all around good guy. There's nothing for Philip Morgan when he dies. I can only conclude 2 reasons. One, he was, like I said, he avoided the limelight. He did not talk to the papers. He didn't let anyone with a camera near him. And he probably wasn't a nice guy. So anyway, no praise for him on his death. And this is the death certificate, carcinoma of the stomach. So he made it to 76. And as far as I know, he wasn't destitute. So he lived out his days. But again, I think we don't know about him for the 2 reasons. One, the Morgan claims never produced at the level of the Daly claims, and that he was allergic to having a news profile. Any questions on Philip or anything? Any remarks? Any thoughts? Pat, what do you got? Anything? No? Nothing? Okay. All right. So now it's time for dessert. Who is Lady Morgan? All right. Who has a hypothesis? Anybody? What was that? I'm sorry, this is a family show. What was that?
Philip Morgan was a cross-dresser.
Oh, okay. Sit down, Nate. That's a new hypothesis. I haven't researched that one. Okay. So okay, let's eliminate the possibilities. Mother or sister? I don't think they were royalty in Wales. I doubt they would assume the title of lady, right? Doesn't seem to play.
Dog's named Lady.
That could be. Yeah. I think we can scratch this one. First of all, he wasn't married when he filed the claim. He wasn't married for almost 15, 20 years. And it didn't end well. So I'm gonna scratch that one. Okay, this is the one I hear most of the time on the chairlifts. She must have been a lady of the night. Well, Sam Radden, the editor, he was not averse to publishing names. So I went in and looked for Lady Morgan and solicitation, prostitution, soiled dove, etc. Any combination, searching the park record and then newspapers.com, and then came up dry. And then I threw in the names, the female names of the mining claims. Nothing. So I don't think we can prove this one. So now I lead tours for the Friends of Ski Mountain Mining History, and my fellow tour guide, Carl Lund, came up with an interesting hypothesis. And that was famous Irish novelist. Sidney Owenson wrote a number of novels, including The Wild Irish Girl, right here. I just got it from Daly, so I haven't read it yet. But it's, she married Sir Charles Morgan and became Lady Morgan. Her novels, this is first part of the 1800s, were bestsellers internationally, and she was a bit of a feminist and an advocate for Irish sovereignty. And so she was friends with Byron and Shelley. So she ran in sophisticated circles. She was a well-known wit, and as well as a novelist, a successful novelist. She was known to wear sleeveless dresses. And so she was sort of a Kardashian with wit and charm. So There are no Kardashians in the room, are there? I'm sorry. What do you think? We can't prove or disprove any of these. There's no documentation that says who the Lady Morgan claim was named for. But show of hands. Mother or sister? Wife? Working girl? Yeah. Okay, we got 3. And then novelist. Okay, all right. We'll take that as a win. Crossdresser. Oh, I forgot crossdresser. Yeah. So, yes, sir.
How about being named for the Lady Morgan silver dollar, which was first printed in 1878?
What?
Ooh, the Lady Morgan silver dollar.
It was first minted in 1878 to 1904, and the bottle on that's Lady Liberty.
Wow. Oh, ta-da! Well done. Okay, all right, I'll come back with part 2 next year. And that's a great clue. Wow. So, silver dollar. Okay. Now, if you want to check my math, here are the sources. Okay. And then any questions? Any other or further research on the fly? Okay, we have Diane will hand you the microphone.
Testing.
So the author named Lady Morgan,
Yes.
was she living in Park City?
She was living in Ireland and England.
Oh, so she has no connection to
No, she was
Utah.
just a famous person. And think of all the mining claims that were named for famous people. You know, generals, presidents, literary figures like Romeo and Juliet. You know, so it's not unusual for a famous person to be, used in a mining claim. Okay, got another one over there.
Well, I see a number of people with their phones and AI out. So who was the Lady Morgan silver dollar named after?
Lady Liberty. That's your order.
But who was Morgan? Was he
Where
like a
did the
treasury
Morgan
secretary?
come from? Anyway,
Come on, research on demand.
let's crowdsource it.
Morgan is the model by George T. Morgan after a real Philadelphia. So Morgan was the designer of it. He designed the silver dollar, Lady Liberty, the woman who built up. And the silver predominantly came from the Nevada area,
Right.
which might have been, it was Comstock mine in Nevada.
Yeah.
Which might have been what parlayed it over to somehow.
Well, I mean, a lot of guys came over from Nevada to work in Park City. So
Maybe that's all I had left in his pocket.
just a single dollar. Yep. Oh, we can make a great story out of this. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
How come you can't get to the Lady Morgan bull from the Lady Morgan lift?
Good question.
You can actually get to it from Pearl,
From
but you don't want to. It's a very short, yeah, you know. Anyway, that's a great question. And as Diane mentioned, I did publish 3 months ago the People's Guide to Park City. It's got some history. I got okay, we have, and it's history and civics and culture and snark and I've named the publishing company Lady Morgan Press, and it's cheaper than a pizza, so and we have them up here. But thank you for your attention. Thank you for the on-the-fly research. That was great. I really appreciate it. Okay. Oh, and anybody wants to look at this, go ahead. So,